Say what's cracking, YouTube? It's your boy 16 to life, and I'm back like I'm on a parole violation. Yard down. Now, for those of y'all that's new to my page, in 1994 I got arrested. I was eventually sentenced to 16 years plus life, and I served 24 years straight in the California prison system. During those times, I accumulated some good stories and insight on things related to prison. I'm gonna share some with y'all today. If you like the video, be sure to hit the like button, leave a comment, subscribe, and most importantly, hit that notification bell. That way, anytime I drop a story, you'll be notified ASAP, and you can hop on it whenever you're ready. Also, if you want to binge watch, catch up on some of my older content, I got a lot of good fight stories, riot stories, some funny things that happen in prison. Go to my YouTube playlist, and you'll find that I have my stories organized into different categories, and I guarantee you're going to find you something that you like. Now, this particular video right here was requested by someone who has been watching my page for a long time, actually, and he goes by the name of Mr. M. Dizzle. So shout out to Mr. M. Dizzle. I did about a year or so ago a video about the prison black market, and so what he was requesting was similar but not quite. He just wanted to know about the currency exchange rate, I guess, for certain things in prison, right? And so depending on what particular prison that a person is at, what's being used as currency varies from prison to prison. I know sometimes people will see old prison movies, and everybody wants to be paid, or people are paying people in packs of cigarettes and Camels and stuff like that. And sometimes that's true. I have seen that, that cigarettes were used as a form of currency in certain prisons, especially where by dudes who like to gamble all day, whether it was cards, poker, whatever, right? But when I first got to prison in 1996, the most requested method of being paid was canned goods. Back in those days, every 30 days, we could get what was known as a package from home. And so, excuse me, I said every 30 days, every 3 months, excuse me. And so what we could receive in those packages were hygiene, soap, shampoo, toothpaste, food, whether it be, cans of chili, chicken in the can, tuna, roast beef, crackers, Kool-Aid, things of that nature, clothes, tennis shoes, sweatsuits, stuff like that. So the most requested item that people would like to be paid in, of course, was food. And probably one of the reasons is, outside of one reason where they don't feed you too well in there, but also back in those days, especially on those level 4s, at any given day, you could go on lockdown for a violent type of incident. And sometimes those lockdowns would be 2 or 3 weeks. Sometimes they would be 2 or 3 years, depending on the nature of the severity of the incident. And of course, so while we're on those lockdowns, we're not leaving the cell whatsoever, with the exception of every 3 days, we may possibly get a shower. If you had a medical reason, you were going to the doctor or something, you would leave the cell. But outside of that, we were stuck in those cells 24/7. No phone calls, no visits, no packages. We wasn't even going to the chow hall. The food was being brought to us in stainless steel carts, and a lot of times by the time they would reach your building, the food would be extremely cold and stuff like that. So having plenty of food stocked up was something that a lot of people tried to do if they was able, right? And so one of the more lucrative trades, I would say, in prison definitely is being able to tattoo. A lot of people come to prison and they want to get tattoos. I'm sure some people are concerned or wonder about if I have any tattoos. I have one tattoo, and not very big, but yeah, you have a lot of people who come to prison though, and they want tattoos. And so being able to tattoo on a high level was something that was always requested in prison. In my experience, not all the time, but the Mexicans and the Asians always had great tattoo artists. Now, of course, you only would do tattoos on the people who you ran with. So blacks, we couldn't get tattoos from Mexicans. Mexicans couldn't do tattoos on blacks. Whites would not do tattoos on blacks, so on and so forth, right? So now there was some times when I ran across blacks who were pretty good at tattooing, but like I said, the Mexicans and the Asians seemed like they always had plenty of bomb tattoo artists, and whites too, but specifically, you would see a lot of Mexicans and Asians with nice tats, right? And one of more requested things in prison in terms of tattoos is portraits. People would like to get portraits of their kids, family members, maybe certain people who they looked up to, whether it was Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, Tupac. And a good tattoo could in prison could probably cost you $200 or $300 depending on the intricacy of the tattoo. And that same $200 or $300 tattoo that you got in prison would definitely probably be $1,000 or better on the streets. And like I say, the work was extremely good. You know, some of those dudes were extremely skilled in tattoos, whether it was, portraits, writings, whatever a person wanted to get. You definitely could find that skill in prison. Now, I mentioned drugs in my last video that I did about the prison black market, so I won't get really deep into that. But of course, weed was always a big requested item in prison. And just the imagine you had a chapstick. Just the top of the chapstick is they call that a cap. It's $10 worth of weed. So imagine the profit you could make off selling weed in there. Like I said, the chapstick top is $10. So what you could make in prison is astronomical. He also asked me about barbers. Now barbers, each, like, okay, so whatever yard you was on, each particular building, if there was 4 buildings or 5 buildings, the majority of the time, each building would have a barber assigned specifically for that building. So there would be a Hispanic, excuse me, goddamn, there would be a Mexican barber, a black barber, a white barber, and an Asian barber. And of course, they would only cut the rates that they was assigned to cut. But still, there was still several barbers on the yard outside of that particular barber. Now that particular barber would have state issued equipment, clippers and sanitizer and things of that nature, right? But you also had several people on the yard who also were barbers, and we could also order clippers, things of that nature in our packages. Now, one thing about prison, you will find people who are extremely creative in prison. When I first got to the county jail, there was a dude by the name of Blue Eyes, and I seen him cutting hair, and he was using a plastic comb and a razor. He would a shaving razor. So he would break the shaving razor open. He'd get the little metal razor out there. He'd pull out of there. He would pull back the comb on the teeth. He'd set the razor on the comb of the plastic teeth. Then he'd use that to cut your hair. Then he would get another shaving razor. He'd pop that open, take out the razor. Then he'd use it to edge your hair up. And I kid you not, man. I still haven't seen haircuts out here on the street as sharp as some of those dudes would give haircuts in there. Another dude who was real good with the razor and the comb was Money Munn from Rolling 60s. I believe Money Munn is the rapper CJ Maxx brother, and he was extremely good. I used to get a lot of haircuts from him too. So people it's so much creativity in prison that it's really mind-blowing. Then of course you had people in there braiding your hair and stuff as well. Now you have a lot of people saying, well, damn, man, I'm not fit to be sitting up in prison getting my hair braided by no man. But if you wanted your hair braided and you couldn't braid yourself, then prison don't have women, so that's what you was gonna have to have it braided by another man. And a haircut might cost maybe about $5. The rates for haircuts wasn't too bad in there. Now the barbers in there, they did have a pay number, which meant that the state paid them, but it was probably only 8 or 10 cents an hour, so it wasn't a whole lot, right? And a lot of times if you go to the barber in the building, you may give him a couple of soups to cut your hair, throw him 4 soups, which is $1, maybe 2 soups, depending on what type of haircut that you wanted. Now, as long as your haircut wasn't too fancy or wasn't too time consuming, some of them would even cut your hair for free. But it all depended on who was your barber. Another hustle in prison was cooking. People like to eat good in prison, and the chow hall is not going to feed you too swell. So like I said, in our packages, we were allowed to get food, refried beans, rice, a whole assortment of different things, right? And you would have some dudes, their hustle was You guys might know it as spreads, but they was in it. They would cook for people. They would maybe possibly make burritos, tacos, a whole bunch of different things, and they could in those packages, they could order all types of seasonings. They sold some seasonings in the store, and that's what some people did for a hustle as well, right? Now we would have these, they used to call them hot pots, and the hot pots were used to boil water, but people, like I said, people were extremely creative, and there was so much ingenuity going on in prison. It was almost amazing. People would break these hot pots down. They would take the metal part off the bottom that was used for boiling water, and they would turn those into grills. I've seen people somehow secure big slabs of metal in prison, hook those up, put an electrical cord on them, and also use those for grills. Like I said, the ingenuity in prison was mind-boggling. And you would have some of these people who would pretty much turn their sales into kitchens. They'd be in there cooking and stuff, making food, selling plates, stuff like that. I had a good friend by the name of Shake. Now, Shake is somewhere up out of San Diego, somewhere, wherever Deep Valley Gangsters is. I believe that's where Shake was from. And Shake happened to work in the kitchen at CMC East. Shake had been in the kitchen for a long time, and due to that, he had seniority and was able to basically get on the grill and cook after they would serve, the population. And so he'd have access to hamburgers and all different types of meat. And at one point in time, Shake told me he was probably making about $400 or $500 a week from just basically selling plates and stuff up in there. People would come in the chow hall for breakfast and be like, "Hey, Shake, I'm here. Shake would have customers already that he was getting ready, that he had made pancakes, waffles, and all type of special things going on. I also had another homie who, he didn't work in the kitchen, but he had turned his sale in somewhat of a restaurant. He would make spreads, seafood bowls, all type of burritos, tacos, all type of things for people. And that was the homie, rest in peace, G-Funk from Gilbert Street. He was also a much sought after cook, because people in prison, they want to eat well, man. And it just all depends on what they would charge. Sometimes you'd have people coming out to the yard selling burritos. They might sell burritos for $3 or $4, which was extremely low. They may make a person a whole spread, a bowl, and maybe sell him the spread or the big giant bowl for $6, $7. It just depended on what all they put up in there, And so it was that was one of the ways to get money and make money up in prison. Another good skill to have was card making. I bought plenty of cards in my day in prison, because there's always, outside of the holidays, Mother's Day and Christmas, we got birthdays. Sometimes you want to send a person that you care about just a thinking of you card or I appreciate you card or whatever. And you had a lot of people who was extremely skilled in making cards. And so that was another good thing. And the price of the card would vary anywhere from maybe $2 or $3 to $10. It all depends on what you wanted on the card. I used to send my family tons and tons of cards. And so I also had a good friend, man. He used to do paintings. Now they have something in there that's known as hobby craft. And so you could order painting kits and stuff like that, man. A good friend of mine, man, Tank from 74 Hoover. He used to make, he used to paint and stuff like that. So it just all depends on, what you want to do. Some of those paintings that I would buy was maybe $20, $30. I can't remember the exact price, but I still have some of them today, and they was extremely nice, right? Another thing people used to do in there, I had a cellie actually who would he would wash clothes. And so I know, of course, a lot of people saying, "Oh man, I ain't gonna be in prison washing nobody's clothes," because he did not have a washer or a dryer. We would check out buckets from the correctional officers, these little plastic buckets, and you put water in them and you get your soap and detergent and you would wash the clothes up in there. Now, he wouldn't wash nobody's drawers or socks, but he would wash pants, state pants or personal pants, because we could have personal clothing up in there as well. From order out our package, we could have sweatsuits, sweat tops, stuff like that, blue jeans. And I forget the exact price that he made, but this was his hustle, and like I say, once again, some people say I won't be in there washing, but everybody's not fortunate enough to have people taking care of them, and then some of the jobs, if you happen to be at a prison that didn't have a PIA, which is a prison industry, Most jobs only paid maybe anywhere from 8 cents to maybe 12 cents. You know, some jobs or trades didn't even have a pay number anyway. And keep in mind, or if you're working for 8 cents an hour, you know, you're probably only getting $10, $12 a month, which is nothing, you know, which is nothing. And so people have to do what they have to do in order to survive, right? Actually, my celly, his name was Black, and he's the one who washed the clothes. He made an extremely good amount of money doing that stuff. Only bad thing about him is he had a tobacco problem. So all the money that he made washing clothes would go towards tobacco. Now, you know, some people wonder, well, why these dudes didn't wash their old clothes, or how do you guys actually wash their clothes? And so some people didn't want to go through the hassle of having to wash their own clothes. And they did have a method where we could wash our clothes. They would give us this mesh laundry bag, right? And so they would come around, I think maybe if, depending on what day, depending on what prison you was at, or what day it was, your building was washing clothes. But basically they would come around with these big old giant carts. Now you would grab your state issued laundry and you put them in these mesh laundry bags, and you tie the top around them and put a knot on them, and it had a little clamp to seal them in there, and you throw it in this big old giant cart. Then they take the cart over to the laundry, and all these clothes would get washed in this laundry bag. They wouldn't even take the clothes out the laundry bag. So it definitely doesn't sound like a sanitary way to clean your clothes. And then if you happen to put your personal clothes in there, chances were extremely heavy that once they got to the prison laundry, you know, they wasn't coming back. So some people prefer not to wash their clothes by that method. They would wash them by hand, and some people prefer just to pay a person washing the clothes, like my celly Black. You know, you also had dudes who, when I was in Ironwood, who would iron clothes. You know, that was their hustle. They'd iron pants, they'd iron shirts, because you have a lot of people going on visits who want to look nice when they go out there for their visit. Or you had also had a lot of people who just like to walk around the yard in creased pants, creased shirts, looking nice for themselves, possibly maybe trying to talk to the COs. Who knows? But the rate that my celly probably used to charge for the pants, I don't quite remember, maybe $2 or $3 a pair of pants. But you know, that money adds up, like I say, especially if you don't have nobody looking out for you. And so it just all depends, man, on what type of hustle you was doing, what prison you was at. You know, it's always about supply and demand. That would dictate what a person would charge for some of these hustles, right? So anyway, man, that's pretty much it. You already know what it is, man. It's your boy 16 to Life. Shout out to M Dizzle for requesting that topic. And resume normal program.